Good morning. We appreciate everybody being here this morning. We have some compelling statistics that I think are of interest to our community. And with me today I have Mr. Andrew Warren, State Attorney for the 13th Judicial Circuit, Mr. Lee Bentley, who is our United States Attorney, Middle District of Florida, and Mr. Daryl McCreary, representing the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives for the United States. What we have is, over the last 3 months or so, during the investigation of illicit drugs, which is something that we unfortunately do on a continuous numbers. And this investigation, what's different, we didn't target a certain group or gang or anything. We went all around the county, and as we were buying illicit drugs, we would pose a question, the undercovers would pose a question to the people they were dealing with. Hey, I'm a convicted felon. Do you know where I can get a gun? I need a gun. And during that time, over 51 people in a short period of time, about 12 weeks, said, yeah, I can get you a gun, no problem. And I can't say enough about the undercover work that was done here with the men and women who were doing these hand-to-hand transactions, because they were bringing loaded guns, and it was really easy to buy them. These involved guns, some that were stolen, some were straw purchases. They were bought for people who couldn't buy them. And in some cases, we do not know where the firearm came from. We do not know if the gun was stolen or not because of poor record keeping and underreporting at times. But during this investigation, we've recovered about 66 firearms, about 42 of those being handguns, 15 rifles, and about 9 shotguns. Why this story is important is if you look at, if you want to predict violent crime, if you want to say, hey, why is this happening in certain cities, one of the things you can always look at is the number of firearms that are readily available on the street that people can just walk up and buy. And number two is the number of aggravated assaults that you start seeing on your UCR report. And our aggravated assaults went up last year about 11%. And that's a significant number. And when you start seeing those two things coupled together, you can expect that if you do not get on this problem, your murders, your robberies, and all these things will trend in that direction. So, you know, with this investigation today, this is just the beginning of more work that's going to be done now that we have taken this snapshot and we know how much is out there. We're going to be putting a lot of resources into it. I'm going to ask Mr. Andrew Warren, and I don't say a part of this is a collaboration that we have with the other agencies who have an interest in violent crime in Hillsborough County, that being the State Attorney's Office, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and the ATF, who they have really helped us in all of these cases where we have firearms involved. So there's a unified effort so to make sure that we don't have a tough year ahead of us with violent crime. And with that, I'll ask Mr. Warren if he'll come up and give a couple of remarks, and then followed by Mr. Bentley and the ATF.
Good morning, everyone. I commend Sheriff G and the Special Investigations Division and all of the deputies involved for their hard work and their diligence in making this operation successful. We don't take it for granted that they put their lives on the line every day and in the course of this specific operation to keep our community safe, and we're honored to work with them as partners. I also want to thank U.S. Attorney Lee Bentley and our partners at ATF for their cooperation. As State Attorney, I've emphasized our need to focus on the crimes that keep our community safe by targeting violent street crime. I've emphasized the importance of evaluating the long-term impact of what we do every day as prosecutors and the value of thinking creatively to solve problems using the law enforcement and prosecutorial tools at our disposal. This is what success looks like. 51 arrests, including 6 convicted felons, 66 illegal firearms taken off the street, including assault weapons and stolen handguns. We proudly support efforts to keep our community safe through gun buyback programs, through gun education, including simple things like reminding people to lock their car doors and their garages to help deter gun theft. And we're proud to work with our law enforcement partners on long-term, resource-intensive investigations like this, which lead to the arrest and prosecution of dangerous criminals. Today, Hillsborough County is safer. Thank you.
I'm going to keep my remarks short because the United States Attorney's Office has very much been in a supporting role here. I want to commend Sheriff G and the brave men and women of the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. It's hard to imagine the physical bravery it took for these men and women to engage in undercover transactions with individuals who were convicted felons or willing to sell firearms to convicted felons. As Sheriff G pointed out, they often showed up for the undercover meet with a loaded firearm, and they're doing their part to keep our streets safe. It is incredibly important to keep firearms away from convicted felons, and it's very important to prosecute the convicted felons with firearms and individuals who are willing to sell or transfer firearms to convicted felons. I want to tell you how much I appreciate the partnership we have with state law enforcement, state and local law enforcement here in the Tampa Bay region. We've had no finer partner than Sheriff G over the course of the last decade plus. The state attorney's office is doing a commendable job of prosecuting these cases, and we're proud at the U.S. Attorney's Office to pick up a few of these cases when a joint decision is made that we can get more bang for the buck with the federal prosecution. Thank you.
Good morning. I just want to commend the men and women of the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Department, the leadership of Sheriff G, the U.S. Attorney Lee Bentley, our prosecutors from the State Attorney's Office. This is certainly a great day for the community. We can take these dangerous firearms off the street, working in a collaborative effort to reduce violent crime and protect our citizenry. Thank you.
We'll take any questions if we get. I also have Major Frank Losat up here. Frank is the commander, Special Investigations Division. Great guy for you. If you have a question after the conference here, you can pin him down. But with that, we're willing to take any question that we can take.
Sheriff, there have been a number of well-publicized cases recently of gun stores being broken into. Is there any evidence to show that any of these firearms are from any of those?
No, they're not. And I know some of those guns have been recovered, and a lot of them are still in the wind. And we don't. And interestingly enough, out of all of these guns, we don't know how many of them are still. We know for sure 6, but we suspect they're. A lot of times when you have a burglary at a house, people don't know the serial number. And so we don't know if some of these may be from car thefts and burglaries, but unfortunately this is not the cache of weapons that we've seen in some of those other high-profile gun store burglaries.
Did it surprise you or disappoint you in any way that how readily available these firearms were?
It does surprise me, to be honest with you, that that they could do that this easily. We've done operations like this about once a year. We do one, and I will tell you, we call it taking a snapshot. We just try to see it. It's the same way we test the drug market to see how much heroin and things are out there, and it substantially has gone up. It was substantially easier. An operation like this would have taken us a lot more months, but it only took 12 weeks. So yeah, it's a lot.
Why did it go up?
Don't know. We don't know, and that's a good question. I mean, a lot of this, I think, a lot of the stolen guns out there are, and ATF was talking about that earlier. They're into programs right now where we're encouraging people to secure these things, be responsible. I don't know if there's just that many of them, more of them out there, or it's just a sign of the times.
Sheriff, you said a lot of folks who they thought they were selling to were, apparently these folks thought they were selling to were posing as convicted felons. Can you say whether these people, I mean, it seems like a lot of them are drug suspects, so can you say whether these people were inherently violent or whether they were merely, the big concern is they were willing to sell to a felon?
Well, I'll let Major Losack come up and ask a question, but a little bit of both. But Frank, come up and give us.
The majority.
Your name and spell it for us also.
Frank Losat, L-O-S-A-T. The majority of these cases started off as drugs, and it turned into guns when these people are either offering us guns or the undercover personnel are asking them for guns and posing as a convicted felon. And these people readily went out and got guns. And on numerous occasions throughout the 3 months, we wouldn't even contact the suspects anymore. They would be contacting us on days off, on the weekends, at night, when they came across guns on the street, and these detectives would make themselves available any hour of the day, any day of the week to go out and get that gun off the street. So once we planted the seed with a lot of these suspects with the drugs, they came forward with the guns as well, too.
They wanted the drug money, in other words, these
It
people you see here?
It was probably feeding a drug habit with some of these people, yes.
So what's broken here? I mean, can any of you speculate here? I mean, what's going on where these guns are just floating around like this? I mean, what are we missing as, as either as lawmakers or as in a society here where it's just, these guns are like flying around the place, being used to get drugs and other things, and, these folks have to go and, risk their lives in order to stop this from happening.
I think a lot of these guns came from unlocked vehicles, burglaries. We stress to everybody, to gun store owners, lock up your guns, lock your vehicles. It takes 2 seconds. Lock your car doors, lock your residence when you leave, close your garage door at night. These suspects are obtaining these guns easy. We're making it too easy for the criminals to obtain guns.
So you believe these guns were ultimately at one point legal guns that were owned by somebody who was otherwise responsible?
Probably. There are a good portion of these guns that we can't confirm are stolen because of the owners not having serial numbers, so we can't trace the gun back to anybody. So that's one of the issues we're having is poor record keeping.
From the from the perspective of the people who had to make these busts, I mean, can you just explain, take us inside their heads, what it's like to have someone who's trying to sell you a gun bring a loaded gun to you, and how much physical danger they're putting themselves in?
It's very dangerous. We make sure they have ample support with backup teams. We utilize all types of resources to make sure they are safe. We make sure they're done in an area where we can have backup units to them within seconds if something does go bad. These detectives are very dedicated at what they're doing. They're very good at what they're doing. And many times these detectives help other agencies that are needing a special type of detective to facilitate a case. So we've gotten a reputation for helping other agencies as well, and they've done an excellent job the last 3 months, and will continue doing this.
Do you think that some of the charges are going to stick, for instance, the purchase of a firearm for an unauthorized person?
If it wasn't going to stick, they wouldn't have been charged. Every case has been consulted with the state attorney's office. Warrants were issued on all these individuals, which meant they went through a judge. So if we didn't think somebody was going to, the charge wasn't going to stick, they wouldn't have been charged.
Because, I mean, just looking through different code or different statute, I know that there are exemptions, for instance, with prostitution things and with narcotics buys and stuff like that for bona fide, law enforcement, criminal investigation. But when it comes to selling guns and firearms, I don't see an exemption like that.
Okay, well, I'll let Mr. Warren talk further if you want to talk state statute on that, if you want to talk about that.
Sheriff, is there anyone in that wall that's the bad guy that you surprised?
Meth, I mean the hardcore stuff, and they're all out
is illegal in the country?